The Kliq owns this business.
Coming down the aisle, Bimbo, Jimbo, Baby Huey.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop. Give me a hell yeah.
Today, I've got the style and profile like never before. It's showtime! Woo!
Welcome, everyone, to a special edition of In The Kliq. I'm Baby Huey, and I'm very excited right now because on the line, we have a very special guest. We have the author and creator of Headlocked. We have Michael Kingston on the line. How's it going?
Good. How you doing? I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to talk to you. So, Headlocked for our listeners out there, I think everyone knows. I mean, between my love for wrestling, my love for like comic books, superhero stuff, all the fun pop culture stuff. So to be able to talk to someone who's fused together two of like my favorite things, comic books and pro wrestling, I'm super excited. And so, yeah, Michael, just listen, I know you've done a bunch of interviews already. I was kind of, as I was researching you and looking up who you are and all that good stuff, I know you answered this question a lot, but just in case for any of our listeners out there who might not know or have heard of Headlocked, can you just please explain what your comic book is all about?
Yeah, so Headlocked is a story. The main Headlocked series is a story of a kid who's a theater actor in college, and he has sort of the stereotypical bad attitude about wrestling. And then one day he's taken to a wrestling show kind of against his will, and he falls in love with it. He sees the sort of performance art aspect of it, and he gets the bug really bad, and he decides to quit school and decides to make wrestling his life. And so the story is his journey sort of navigating the underbelly of the wrestling business, trying to learn the craft, and then sort of at the same time, we're examining the craft of wrestling through the eyes of a performance artist. Mm-hmm. So there's it's a fun HBO style drama, but also, it's informative for people who don't know, I guess, what all goes into, professional wrestling as an art form.
Yeah, no, I love hearing that concept. And I think for anyone who's listened to myself long enough with this wrestling show for the last couple of years, they know, how much I love it, and I love like just defending it to people who might be haters against it. And I always try to explain to people like why I love it and just how it appeals to who I am and just all like the interests I have. And so it's very cool that you're kind of taking that with your story and just, I think, really painting an awesome just image of what pro wrestling is. And so for you, I'm just curious, it sounds like obviously you're a fan of pro wrestling and you've done your research for this. And let's be honest, we all know like wrestling fans are also some of the biggest critics out there and are easily to jump on if, things are not maybe completely accurate or whatnot. So I'm just curious for you, when you came up with this story and the concept for Headlock, how did you go about kind of research and just doing your due diligence from a behind the scenes standpoint to make sure you're very accurate as far as the portrayal of the wrestling business?
Well, one of the things that I don't think a ton of people know about me is that I have a biochemistry degree.
Yeah.
So I'm very research oriented. It's the thing that I enjoy doing the best when it comes to writing stories. Like a lot of people don't like writing licensed books and stuff like that, but I get kind of excited to dig into stuff and maybe look at it with a fresh set of eyes and, maybe find things that other people don't see. Yeah. So, I just, for the longest time, I would just consume any and all wrestling stuff. And it wasn't even necessarily to make a comic book. It was just because I loved it and I found it fascinating. So I would read all the books that would come out, and I would I would consume anything wrestling. That I would watch the shows. I would watch if there's a documentary. I read The Observer. All of that stuff. So and then I put my first book together, and I took it out on the road, and eventually, wrestlers who were fans of wrestling would discover my book, like Hurricane, Rob Van Dam, Christopher Daniels. Like, they were the first ones, because of the big comic heads.
Yeah.
And, and the best compliment that anybody ever gives me is, when wrestlers say to me, like, "Are you sure you've never wrestled before?" And that makes me feel good, because, it shows, I'm at least on the right track in terms of authenticity. So, and now, I've collaborated with like 40 different wrestlers. My interior artist, Mikkel Molapola, is a Samoan wrestler from New Zealand.
Yeah.
Jerry Lawler does the covers. So, I have no shortage of places to go if I got questions. So,
yeah.
I generally try to, you don't get so into the weeds that it's, that it's impenetrable. We try to tie what he's learning. Like, each issue is written like a chapter of television, where we try to sort of, he learns something about wrestling. We sort of tie that into his growth as a man. So it's sort of a coming of age story.
Yeah, no, that's very cool to hear. And so I encourage everyone to, if you haven't yet, please go out there and discover Headlocked. And so I'm just curious, because I was looking on Wikipedia earlier, and it says Headlocked started back in 2007. That's when you debuted. So well over a decade now. So just curious, for anyone who's hearing this right now and wants to go back and pick up back issues of Headlocked, is there trade paperback versions of all these volumes of your story? Is it something that we can go to like our local comic book store and just order in person there? Or is there like a website we can go to get all that stuff?
So my primary method of distribution is Kickstarter, and through my web store.
Gotcha.
And generally, some stores carry it, but we don't go through Diamond like traditional comic book stuff. I built like most of this from the ground up. So believe it or not, it wasn't an easy sell to the comic book world when I started, which is why is what necessitated me doing it by myself. So right now, everything we do is in trade paperback now. The first series we did in floppies, and that's since been collected. And now we produce just original graphic novels. We try like once a year to get a book out. 5 chapters of Headlocked.
Yeah.
And we've done an offshoot series called Tales from the Road, which is what we're producing right now, which is a series of short stories co-created by different wrestlers that sort of flesh out the different corners of the Headlocked universe, because Headlocked is told from Mike Hartman's perspective. So you just see what he sees, which, if you're a kid at wrestling school, like, how much of the actual world do you see? So, when I got these wrestlers to collaborate with me on short stories, I thought it would be a fun idea to just build out different corners of the wrestling universe. So, we have just different locales. Like, a story I did with Christian was about the sort of Canadian death tours, and down the road when Mike is currently stationed in a territory in Texas. So when he leaves, maybe I'll take him to a Canadian death tour, and we've built a little connective tissue and laid the groundwork for some characters there. We did a story with Gangrel about a guy who trains Bigfoot to wrestle, which is a little more out there, but it's fun. And we try to tie everything into reality as much as possible. So some of the stories that are more fantasy based usually have some sort of a hook that bring them back to reality.
Yeah.
So it's been a lot of fun. It's been really a real fruitful process. Kickstarter is really what sort of turned the page for us.
Okay.
For a long time, just trying to fight the comic book world and the distribution and comic book stores and all that was such a losing battle. But with Kickstarter, we're able to sort of bring it to the people and let them decide. And, we've raised over $100,000 on Kickstarter. The current Kickstarter that we have going right now for Tales from the Road, which has got 4 days left on it, it just hit $20,000 today.
Wow.
So, it's been nice on, I guess this sounds kind of like a dick thing to say, but I guess it's nice to be proven right.
Yeah.
But I'm super grateful for everybody that supported the series. It's been a labor of love, so we just try to keep it moving.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, congrats on hitting the 20,000 mark. It's so yeah, for anyone just listening right now, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and share the link on all of my social handles, my personal and also at In The Kliq on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. So yeah, if you look up the Headlocked Kickstarter program, so you're raising money to, as you just said, to get this next story out, Headlocked Tales from the Road. The deadline is July 27th. So please, as soon as you hear this, if you want to make a contribution, that would be awesome and just help get this story out there. And so as you said, like you were talking to me off the air, so it's like anthology, but it's also like expanding the universe. So to me, that's exciting because it sounds like you're going to be able to kind of create these other characters who then maybe eventually there'll be like crossover with your main character. And I mean, I think that's really cool just because, in the world that we live in now, in pop culture, a lot of these shows and movies who have an expanded universes, it's always cool to see like characters interacting with each other. And it's always like these cool Easter eggs. So is that kind of what you're going to do here once you get the Kickstarter thing, when you're done with it and you want to get the story going, is that something you really want to see, just kind of the Headlocked universe really expanding?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a million ideas for stories. I mean, wrestling's got such a rich subculture, and I enjoy telling Mike Hartman's story, but it's a very specific story. Yeah. So the cool thing about the Tales from the Road is it allows me to play in different genres. And, people come in and out of Mike's universe all the time. So, if somebody perhaps leaves, like say you're here, you're at this promotion and you go to another territory, I'd like to be able to do like maybe a limited series with that character showing their experiences somewhere else, maybe without Mike, because all these characters have, obviously a rich backstories of their own. And it would give me a different way to explore the universe. So, the last book we did, The Hard Way, had a story by Pentagon, which was our first sort of foray into Mexico. And then this Tales from the Road, we have a story from Christian, which is, we're covering some stuff up in Canada. So, it's the story that we did with the Young Bucks features two characters that we see in the Headlocked series, and it's sort of their future. So there's a lot of, you can pick up Tales from the Road and you don't need to have ever read any Headlocked books to appreciate it and enjoy it, because all the stories are sort of fun, standalone stories on their own.
Gotcha.
But if you do, there's a little deeper level of appreciation that you'll have for some of the things, some of the Easter eggs and stuff that we drop in there, but none of them are essential to understanding the story. So
very cool. So when you say like you collaborate with, various pro wrestlers and whatnot, now are you like more or less like picking their brain and just kind of hear stuff that they've been through, and then maybe you can kind of put in your own words and apply it into a story, a future story at some point, or just to kind of like really add that authenticity, as you mentioned, to future storylines? Like, I'm just kind of curious, when you collab with someone, how does that actually help you with like future issues of Headlock?
Well, the Tales from the Road stories are co-written by wrestlers.
Okay.
So some of them are very personal experiences. Like we co-wrote a story with Mustafa Ali, and some of it's based around a real life experience that he had.
Awesome.
Some of the story I co-wrote with Gangrel is about, a guy training Bigfoot to wrestle, and that's completely just pulled out of thin air. You know what I mean? It's still super fun. The story that we did with Taya Valkyrie is sort of a riff on an old El Santo movie. So there's a lot of different genres, but yeah, they co-create the stories. It's, some of them will sit down and send me a script. Christopher Daniels wrote like a full script for his story. It's not in this book, but I collaborated with Mick Foley, and Mick Foley wrote a full pro story. And sometimes I just sit down with people over drinks or at a convention, and we sort of riff on ideas and go back and forth, and then I'll write something and then I'll send it to them, and then they'll send me notes, and then we go back and forth and whatnot. But, it's been super, super fun just because, you know, obviously all these people are storytellers, you know, and so it's fun to get to create something with people I respect and admire. So that's my, that's been one of the more, cool parts about this. You know, I mean, I just wanted to write a cool wrestling comic book, you know, when I started, and now, you know, Jerry the King Lawler paints the covers to my books, and, you know, I've been able to, you know, I co-wrote a story with Ric Flair. I mean, how cool is that? We sat in a, you know, a restaurant and had drinks and hashed out a story, and, you know what I mean? Like that's an experience that, you know, I'll have with me forever, which, you know, no matter how many books I sell is always going to be the coolest part about it.
Absolutely. No, I'm so envious of you just hearing that, just the kind of the personal relationships you're able to build with these people that, you know, for a lot of us watch for years on TV and just, we feel like we know them from the wrestling standpoint, but it's so cool you get to connect with all of them. So I definitely want to hear more about Jerry Lawler, but real quick, I have to bring this up just because our mutual friend, Mike Miller, who helped set this up, he texted me and he said something about one of the characters is inspired by him. So for everyone here in the Bay Area, in Northern California, specifically in the wrestling scene, we know Mike Miller. He's one of the most, I'm trying to think of the right word. I don't want to say hated because I hate to strong.
Notorious.
Notorious, yes.
Notorious is a good word.
Managers here in the Bay Area, All Pro Wrestling. He does appearances at other wrestling promotions here in the Bay Area in Northern California. But so for anyone here who knows Mike Miller, we know his character and his gimmick and stuff. So yeah, can you kind of just fill us in a little bit on one of the characters that he apparently inspired?
Yeah, it's one of my sort of favorite offshoot characters. Okay. His name is Tommy Tuxedo, and he's a shady promoter, and he's got a very brightly colored. He's got like a tuxedo with like very brightly colored lapels on it, and he's the carniest of the carny in the Headlocked world, and he's featured in the story that I co-created with the Young Bucks. Yeah. And he's featured in another story that'll be in a future edition that I co-created with Jeff Cobb. Yeah. And he's sort of is a character that ideas kind of come very easy to me, easy for me. So and it's a fun character. So I like to, and he's colorful, and he looks shady. So
well, he does in real person too. I could say that. I always boo him whenever I see him at a wrestling show.
Yeah, no, the character. I'm talking about the character. I'm not talking about Mike.
I can say that about Mike. Oh, yeah, Mike, you're a shady person. He's gonna text me now. I was like, what the hell?
But no. I mean, Mike's been a good friend for a long time.
Absolutely.
And, it's one of the fun parts about getting to do this is putting, having people that inspire me, or people that I'm friends with, or in some cases, some people who've been really, really good Kickstarter backers. Yeah. I've been able to make them a part of the series. And, this was such a grind for me for so long, Mm-hmm. I mean, I started selling this out of my backpack at wrestling shows, and, I worked like 60, 70 hours a week just to be able to do this at the level I do it. The Kickstarters just pay for the books, like they pay for the art, they pay for the printing. Yeah. I still have to make money to pay for my convention booths and my travel and whatnot. And some of that, obviously, the book makes too. But, I like to be, our San Diego Comic-Con booth is 5 figures. It's not a cheap thing to have. Yeah. And, so you got to be liquid enough to do that. And one of the things I'm also very passionate about is having a space at Comic-Con for wrestling, because when I started going to Comic-Cons, there was no space for wrestling. And so, even to this day, I mean, at the biggest Comic-Cons, we have the only wrestling booth at most of the shows. I have the only dedicated wrestling booth at San Diego, the only dedicated wrestling booth at New York Comic-Con, at Emerald City. Mm-hmm. So, we try to have a place for wrestling fans to feel welcome and be happy. And we try to bring positive experiences there. Like, we don't do the cattle sign thing. We don't rush people through the line. We try to create experiences with wrestlers that are happy to be there, wrestlers who like being at Comic-Cons. Like, I don't want some dude there that's just pissy and trying to make money signing autographs. Like, you know, we try to make a positive experience for the fans, for wrestling fans at Comic-Con. So that's one other part of my mission with you know, making Headlocked as well.
No, I definitely just want to tell you, I respect everything you just said there. And I mean, I really respect your DIY style. And that's something I really noticed just researching you and just seeing other interviews you've done. And as you said, that fan experience, just like I have not personally been to a San Diego Comic-Con, but just from the photos and videos, and, you know, please follow Headlock Comic on, you know, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I know you've been posting a lot of like throwbacks from previous Comic Cons, and
on our Instagram, yeah, we're doing San Diego flashbacks this week with some of the cooler moments that we've had.
Yeah, so I'm seeing all this, and like you said, you really take so much pride in creating this fan experience. And when people show up, there's so much to look at, and just for any wrestling fan, it's amazing. So I just want to give you kudos for all that, and I mean that's really awesome. And you know, hopefully, you know, once this pandemic's done and we can kind of get back to normal lives and routine again, I mean, I would hope that, you know, someday soon you come up to the Bay Area to one of the many conventions we have up here or up in the Northern California area. So we'll love this.
Well, we were due to come to Stockton Con. Jerry and I were due to come to Stockton Con this year, and then we'll definitely slated for next year. So
awesome. Well, we'd love to, you know, talk to you in person or even, you know, get you on a regular basis. But I know you've been really generous with your time. Just a couple more for you. So, just, you know, something I'm kind of curious is, and we always like to ask, like, you know, people who come on to the show and stuff, just kind of a little bit of throwing it out there just to get people to get more familiar and know who you are. So just a couple quick questions. So how'd you get into pro wrestling? Favorite wrestler? Favorite match? And if you're able, if there's a bucket list item in pro wrestling you want to do, like, so for example, for me, I've always said, like, I would love to go to Wrestle Kingdom one day in Japan. So just curious for you, like, yeah, how'd you get into pro wrestling? Favorite wrestler, favorite match? And yeah, is there anything you wish you could accomplish in the wrestling business or experience or feel or something like that?
George the Animal Steel is what got me into wrestling.
Okay.
I was flipping channels the first Saturday Night's Main Event that was on, dating myself age-wise a little bit, but you know, I remember I was looking for Saturday Night Live, and had Saturday Night's Main Event on in its place, and the match was Barry Windham, Mike Rotundo, and Ricky Steamboat against Sheik, Volkov, and George the Animal Steel, and I'd never seen anything like George the Animal Steel. You know, I was, I think, 8 years old. Yeah. And I was transfixed with it. So I watched it. I've watched it every day since.
Awesome.
My favorite match. So I've seen a lot of wrestling live, and I always say this, but I think as an art form, wrestling is always best consumed live. I feel like you steal a little bit of its soul when it's recorded. Yeah. I think it's like jazz music in a lot of ways. Like, it's best when it's improvisational in front of a live audience. That being said, I think my favorite live experience as a wrestling fan was Samoa Joe versus Kenta Kobashi at the New Yorker Hotel in 2005. Wow. I would put that, you know, there was 1,500 people in the New Yorker ballroom, and I would put that crowd, like, per capita noise-wise, up against any crowd I've ever been at. Yeah. Like, my ears were ringing for a good hour and a half after that show. And it was amazing. It was amazing to watch. And then, like, if I was watching the show and I look up in the balcony and I watch, like, all the wrestlers were up in the balcony watching it, and they were losing their minds. Like, you know, it's cool to see, you know, I think when someone's a practitioner of the craft, you tend to, in some ways, become jaded to it. But you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? For those guys that have, you know, a guy like Christopher Daniels has been around forever, you know, I mean, losing his mind, you know, like wrestling, you know, it's cool when wrestling has those moments when it's real for you. Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny for me, like, having these friendships with these guys now, like, in a lot of ways, wrestling is real for me because I want my friends to win because I know it's better for them. You know what I mean? And I also don't want them to get hurt. So when guys take bumps, like, you know what I mean? Like, and it's somebody that I personally know, like, I cringe, you know, like, I'm like, oh man, I hope he's all right. So, yeah, you know, like, in a lot of ways, wrestling is real for me again. so that was my favorite. That was my favorite live experience for sure.
Awesome.
I also was a huge fan of Steve Austin and Bret Hart at WrestleMania 13.
Awesome.
The double turn, I think, is so well done. Just it's something that so many people have tried to copy since.
Yes.
And I don't think anybody's been able to pull it off anywhere near as successfully as the way that was done. Just a, I don't know, near perfect execution.
Yeah. That's that.
And then just for spectacle, Hogan Rock WrestleMania 18 is such a, like I think in a lot of ways, like wrestling should be in smaller arenas. I don't necessarily like it in stadiums, but Hogan and Rock was a stadium match.
Yeah.
Like that was just such a big, bombastic match, and not a technical masterpiece by any stretch, but I mean, people are losing their minds. I mean, and it was a real spectacle.
Yeah.
So.
No, it's really cool. Just shameless plug. I am wearing my stunning Steve Austin shirt right now. I just got from Pro Wrestling Tees. So I'm glad you said
very cool.
Steve Austin there. And I know you got a Pro Wrestling Tees store as well that you have some shirts up there. So listen, I know our time is limited. Just real quick, kind of last thing. I was curious, just what your thoughts on the current state of pro wrestling. Like, God, there's so much of it right now between Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, the weekend. It just, I'm just curious, how much do you consume each week? I know you're a busy guy yourself, but it's just, do you try to take in as much as you can? Is there anything in particular you love or a big fan of?
I do. I try to watch as much as I can. It's tough. I work overnights at my regular job, so it's tough sometimes to get there, but it's I watch what I can, and there is a lot of content, but there's a lot of movies too, you know what I mean? Like, people still watch movies, so
yeah.
It's just, as long as it's good, I mean, bad content will struggle. I mean, I do think that wrestling loses something when it's not in front of a crowd, considering the entire art form is based on crowd manipulation. I do think it loses a little bit of its luster there. And it is interesting to see the guys that have thrived in this environment, though, because it's not an easy environment to thrive in. And right now, I think I'm caught up in, I think a lot of, AEW seems like they found their way, like they're producing shows, and in a lot of ways, WWE still feels like they're kind of trying to find their feet.
Yeah.
In the crowdless era, and but like Impact has made some moves, and they've actually coming out of this a lot stronger than they went into it, which I think is impressive.
Totally.
Considering they lost a couple, of their top stars.
Yeah.
3 of them to be exact. And, but somehow they replaced them with good talent that I think people know can execute in the right circumstances. I'm a big fan of Eric Young. I'm a big fan of EC3. I'm a big fan of Gallows and Anderson. And they've got an incredibly stacked women's division. So, Taya's awesome, and Kylie Ray and Kimberly and Jordan Grace and Deanna Prazo. So,
yeah,
I mean, they've got a really good scene too. And I think it's impressive. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's trying to pivot and figure out how to succeed and how things are going to land. And I think it's an impressive thing for them to come out of, mid pandemic. I guess they're have somehow found a way to improve their presentation. And I think that's really that really speaks a lot to those guys.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. Listen, Michael, you've been so generous with your time. Really appreciate it. And listen, to be honest, I probably got to like half of the questions and stuff I want to get through. So I definitely want to talk to you again very soon. There's still so much more I want to pick from your brain and just your experiences, and just obviously, sitting with Ric Flair, having drinks, hanging out with Jerry Lawler, and the relationship you have with him. So cool. So we encourage everyone, go to Kickstarter, go to the Headlocked Tales from the Road page. I'll put it out all of our social media handles. Also, I'll get up at 1077thebone.com. And Michael, listen, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun. And I'm always down whenever you want me to come back, and we can talk about wrestling and whatever else. But yeah, in the meantime, everybody check out the Kickstarter. We got 4 more days left. So
yes.
it's not necessarily a money issue for us. It's just it's a pre-order, and I just want people to want to read it. And you can get it at any level. You can get it digitally. You can get it in print. You can get copies of all the books we've done. You can get copies of any of the books. And because we don't have any conventions, we actually put up our convention exclusive art prints as part of the Kickstarter, which is something we've never done before. So even if you don't like comics, we've got, I think, 40 different art prints of different wrestling stars that are unbelievable. Some of them are comic book inspired or whatever. So just check it out. There's a little something for everybody there.
Awesome. So I got an idea. I think I'm going to, I want to contribute, and I want to get one, and I want Mike Miller to sign it for me personally. I think that's a good idea. Yeah, it's awesome, Michael. Listen, thank you so much for your time, and we'll talk to you very soon. Okay.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Take care.